Let's go.
To the library.
To the library.
Vamos a la biblioteca.
Let's go to the library.
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 Let's go to the library, a Niagara Falls Public Library podcast. Hello and welcome. This is your host, Greg Jansen. I'm a community development and programming librarian with the Niagara Falls Public Library, and this is episode 3 of the Let's Go to the Library podcast. And now I'd like to introduce our guest for this month, Jolie Phuong Hoang. By day, she is a professor of mathematics at Niagara College, and she has recently embarked on a new career as an author. I spoke with her recently about her brand new memoir, 3 Funerals for My Father, and here is that conversation. Jolie, welcome.
Hello, Greg. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. So we're going to talk a lot about the book and about your experience, but I wanted to give people a little bit of context starting out for people who might not be familiar with Vietnamese history. This book opens with part of your family attempting to escape communist Vietnam and join the rest of your family who had already successfully made it to Canada, and you were among those. So can you please explain what and why you were escaping at this point? It was the communist government, but so what's kind of a summary of the history here, please?
Yeah. Okay. So in brief, I just want to say that in 1954, the Geneva Conference divided Vietnam into 2 at the 17th parallel. So Vietnam had North Vietnam and South Vietnam. North Vietnam was under communist rule. South Vietnam was under the influence of the Americans. So the war started for so many years when the North Communist Army trying to unify Vietnam. So in April of 1975, the last American left Vietnam. The North Communist Army successfully invaded South Vietnam and then accomplished the Communist Republic of Vietnam. So after that, people fled the country due to communist oppression. From the re-education camp to new economic zone, the citizens experienced both overt and covert acts of aggression from the government. So as a result, hardship for some of them reached the dead end. So they have to reach the extreme decision of escape into the sea to find freedom.
Right, and it was always by sea, wasn't it? It was always by boat, it seemed like.
By boat is mostly by boat. Some is actually by try to across the border into Cambodia, and then from Cambodia to Thailand. Yeah, but the Vietnam has a long stretch of ocean, a beautiful country facing the Pacific Ocean, and escaping by boat is a lot easier at that time.
So, as a memoir, I expected this, I went into this with expectations, which you should never do in reading a book, but I just thought, this is going to be your story, you're going to tell it to us, but it's very interesting, some of the choices you've made, because it's very much the story of your family and your father in particular, and a lot of the chapters alternate between your point of view and his point of view. So what made you want to tell the story from your father's point of view as well as your own? And what does your father's point of view allow you to do narratively that you could not do from your own point of view? It's a lot of questions. I'm sorry. Packed into one.
It's fine. Yes. I would like to frame my family story into because it's involving war, involving escaping the country. I want to frame it within the love of the families and explain a lot of reason behind why we have to escape. So I don't want to start this book talking about the history of Vietnam, because I want to talk about how I feel, how I really feel, and the effect of the war and the effect of separate from my father, my mother, my younger sister on me. So when I concentrate on that, I feel that when a loved one dies, their physical being no longer exists, but their voices and actions remain in our memories. In prolonged grieving, their voices amplify and create an illusion that they are still around us. That was how I felt. In addition, the narrative used as the first person will be more genuine to express intense emotion, because we are talking about love and then loss. And then we talk about unreplaceable love in this case, the fatherly love to the family. And my father died when his vision of a new life with freedom was about to come true for him. I thought my father would feel tormented by his unfulfilled dream and responsibilities, because I knew my father's characters. His selflessness and devotion to his family stopped the moment that he died. He left the world leaving so much unsaid words, so much undone. Therefore, I think nothing could express his agony better than the voice of his ghost.
Right. And it is so effective in that you have made it personal. It's not a history, like you said. It doesn't read like something that happened distantly, which to a lot of people in Canada it's something that happened a long time ago. It's something that happened in a place that was far away, but you've brought it right into our imagination, and it gave me a real insight into your experience. And as I said when we were speaking earlier, I almost feel like I know you. We're just meeting today for the first time, but I almost feel like from reading this. So it's very effective.
Thank you.
So
Because part of may I add to that? Like part of writing a memoir is I feel that you write from your true feeling. It's genuine from the voice inside your inner self. So I really want the reader to feel it. So I thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
We did, and to be honest, it feels so intensely like I had to take breaks at times. Like it's you've had a very intense experience, which we'll get into more. And the love it just comes through, and the mourning comes through, and it's just beautifully done. So where was I? Okay, so. A lot of it, like I like in your answer, you keep touching on memory and the idea of a person who's deceased, who's passed on, still being alive in your memory. So one of the passages I liked in the book, you say, and this was of your last day, you're remembering your last day with your father. I should have paid more attention, you say. I should have sealed it in my memory. But from what I can see, having read the book, you've clearly remembered quite a lot. The chapters from your father's point of view are very rich with details of his life, and then your family's life as the American War in Vietnam escalates and then ends, and then communism takes over, as you were explaining earlier. Were the many details in your book, were those recalled entirely from your own memory, or were some of them stories passed down from your mother or from other parts of your family, or did you have to do kind of supplementary research, family research or other kind of research to get some of those details, because it's so rich with detail?
Yeah. So the passage in the book that you just read, like the two sentences that I should have paid more attention, I should have sealed it in my memory. I regret the moment that at the first time when I escaped. When my father took us to a bus station, and we waited for the bus to come to take us, and then I was occupied trying to remember what my father was telling us what to do. So I didn't pay too much with the surrounding environment. So at that time, I think I started to realize the seriousness of the matter and fear. And feeling that I'm losing his protection somehow, and that I have to start take the course of action into my own. That I have to feel responsible for it. So then I didn't pay attention with the surrounding environment. But if I could, I would want to memorize the name of that street. I would want to memorize the bus station, where all the activities was going on with the little supermarket there, right? Because when I came back to Vietnam in 2008, I really want to look for that spot. Honestly, I really want to go back to that spot. If I could remember, I would definitely go back to that spot, because at that very spot, I want to feel close to my father, because at that very spot, I remember when the bus started to drive away, he drove the bicycle beside it for a distance, and then he discreetly waved to us to signal a farewell. Then he stood beside his bicycle. The dust from the road swirled up to blur his image. Then at that, for somehow that image hit and stayed with me for a long, long time. And whenever I miss my father, I thought about him, that image kept coming back. So I want to go back to that very spot. So the sentence that we read, it was like it's more like I wish that I knew where that spot was, and I don't think my brothers and sister remember where that spot was. And it was like 30 years, 25 years, so everything changed. So and anyways, get back to the question that you have. You said if all of what I wrote in the books depends on my memories or from story or from research. So I research. I have to do some research. Okay, so I research to make sure the timing and the locations and the events happens around it that I have to be correct. And then all the story that happened before 1975, before I was born, I've heard from my father, from my mother. Like I mentioned in the book, we have family meetings. So meeting was like my father would tell us a story, his experience in the war, and if we look at family albums, picture, we would ask our parents, so what happened to this? Like, there's 10 of us in the family, and I am number 6 in the family. So I was born like after the time that my father and my mother met, and my how my sister got to know my parents. So I want to know all about that. So I asked a lot of questions, and I remember all the story that my father and my mother told me. And but after 1975 and years after that, all the events happened. Is actually I remember, because the impact of those events, I have to say that it's unforgettable.
Of course, and it's easy to see why that would be. I mean, and you talked about just to be clear, that moment at the when the bus was going to pick you up. How old were you at that time?
I was 17. Actually, 17. I was 16, turning 17.
16. So, I mean, just a young person. I mean, no wonder you're just kind of,
Yeah.
It's so. Yeah. How could a young person even contemplate that kind of the gravity of that moment?
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah.
Understand it better now. And the other thing I was going to say is, it's just to be clear, that's the last time you saw your father alive.
Yeah, that was my last time. Yeah.
Wow. So, as perhaps that leads us, I guess, into our next question. As one could expect, the title is 3 Funerals for My Father. The first couple of chapters are very mournful, and from his point of view, he's mourning his own passing. Like, he wants to continue living. He wants to make sure his children, can get to freedom and prosper in life. But the mournfulness, like you're saying, the grieving of that loss comes through very clearly and very powerfully, I think, throughout the book. So what was it like for you in writing this book, revisiting this very painful period in your family's history?
So the painful process of recalling such event is undeniable. Yeah. So these wounded feelings are difficult to express if we try to suppress them and avoid them. So I knew that I suppressed, and then I avoided for a long, long time, because I think I concentrate a lot on my study, concentrate on building my future, because we practically actually on our own. And when I start writing, I try to find the courage to confront the inner struggle. During that process, I discovered that I never wanted this painful memory to be faded. I always want to remember. But I try to put it somewhere in the dark space of my soul. And I know that sorrow became a dark space that I must navigate through it. So I found writing is a very powerful tool. While writing, I analyze my thought, and then I put my feelings onto papers. So it's more like I have to map everything together. Then I have to create like a painting out of it. The painting can be very sad, very happy, and it's like, for myself, I know that I have to analyze to examine the detail, because every time I look at a painting, I know that it happened to all of us too. If we look at a painting, we want to study it. So for me, that's the process that I took. Why I realized when I write, I need to put all the details in front of me, confront my inner struggle, analyze them, and in the process, I probably realized that I entered the process of self-discovery and self-healing. So it eased up a lot of the painful emotion. And in addition to that, I need to say that discipline is the soul of writing. I am grateful that my parents embedded a strong sense of discipline in me. And I think discipline builds logic into the process of writing. If you concentrate on logic will steal part of the painful memory away, and then take it away from the original form and then place it in a more practical perspective.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of discipline, I mean, you know what? I'm going to leave that for you. I have a question later on about your kind of journey as a writer, but I'm very interested that you bring that up, just kind of building a practice of writing, it sounds like. And so it sounds to me like this whole process was therapeutic then for you. I mean, it's a way to work your way through these things. That's interesting. I mean, so for my next question, I wanted to ask you about, it's hard to, I think, talk about this book while avoiding the subject of fate. Fate kind of hangs over this whole book very strongly. You know, there are omens appearing, kind of foretelling of you know, bad things going to happen. And then page 29, as the war escalates, a passage that stuck out to me. Your father says, this is from his perspective in the narrative. All we could do was pray for the resolution of factors that we could not control. So can you talk a little bit about this notion of fate and where that comes from and how you explored that in the book?
Okay. In talking about fate, I would like to mention that Vietnam is a country plagued with centuries of war. Like, my parents' lifetime was constantly facing struggle and hardship, facing the factor that they cannot control. So in terms of comparisons, like, people born in a peaceful country have more control over their lives and the livelihood of their families, while citizens in the war-torn country could only say, fate decided for me to be born in this country and placed under this hardship. So I think it's already built in. It's already built into the soul of the people who live under uncontrollable factors. So, but with something in life, what can we explain? Like,
how else do you make sense of that? I guess, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. It's you know, and that speaks to. This is a subject I guess I was wanting to get into later as well, but just the relevance of this book to ongoing events. I mean, these are all events that happened 40 years ago, but it's still so relevant today. We see, I mean, there's the war happening in Ukraine right now, but even before that, people escaping in boats, escaping from Syria, North Africa, into Europe. People escaping South America to try to get into the southern United States. We had a family who was trying to escape India, and they froze to death in the Canadian prairies this past winter. I mean, this book you've written of people escaping these places that are experiencing war and environmental disasters. I think you give such an insight, having been through not the same experience, a similar experience and a similar set of circumstances. So. Thank you for your answer. I mean, I think that helps us kind of understand in a way that maybe someone born and raised in Canada like myself couldn't necessarily kind of contemplate.
Thank you.
So you mentioned at several points in the book, you kind of allude to your creativity. Like you you playing guitar and writing songs with your sister. You write poems. I mean, a few of your poems are included in the book. So you had different creative media you've explored, and you actually teach math. You're a professor of math at Niagara College. And you've come to writing kind of after teaching math, you said, for 25 years. And so what compelled you to write your story as opposed to telling it in some other form? And can you tell us a bit about your journey as a writer? What brought you to writing?
Yeah, okay. So to be very honest with you, I can say that I really want to be a writer when I was little. When I came to this country, I had to learn English as a second language. I had to speak another language. I had to be practical too. Like when I apply for university, I need to apply for a program that could give me a job. So at that time, learning English literature is out of the option. Like I don't think if I could make a choice. I think I would go back and learn literature. But I appreciate mathematics. I love mathematics. And I think mathematics has a logic components, has keep the mind straight. It kept the imagination away. Because you can imagine when you work with mathematics, it gives you in the practical world. Okay, so I had to say that studying mathematics keep my mind like in a straight line and focus on my career and purpose in life for a long time. And it turned out to be a career that I really love, and I love talking about mathematics, but I cannot get away from relating to mathematics with my real life experience. Okay, so in telling the story, so I would like to get back to your question. In telling the story, like opposing to telling in some other form, because I wrote my first book with a purpose that I want to create a connection between my father, my mother, and my younger sister to the next generation of the Hoang family. Like my daughter, my grandchildren, nieces and nephew could only see photo of their grandparents, their aunt, but they never met them or known them in person. So this book creates a bond, a link to the past, and I wanted them to be proud and appreciative of their roots. So the ghost voice of my father make it real, and they heard it like it makes like they heard it directly from my father. So my journey as a writer, right? So I think I mentioned that already, that English is my second language, and it's a long process in learning. Like I feel like I have to take a very slow step, climbing up a mountain. At some point, like people could climb the mountain with equipment, with joy, with like a hobby. But for me, I have to crawl up the mountain. I sometimes feel like that. Like it probably take a lifetime to master the second language. So, but what I need to discipline myself, and what's really motivated me to write is that my daughter asked me about the death of my father and my younger sister. So they asked that question, but each time I didn't know how to give a correct answer to that, because I realized that the answer is not simple as just a few sentences. So I set out writing so that I can give her a thorough explanation. So then the first book was written in 2014. The book is called Anchorless, and it completed with just a few chapters, and I left it. The planning of the chapters and the events to be written was circling in my head, but I could not put them down on paper. For some reason, the thoughts seemed to be tangled up and just trapped at one spot. So, but in 2015, after I attended my father's last funeral, I left California feeling exceptionally sentimental. Like it's more like it hit me the most is that because I attending my father's funeral. He passed away for 30 years. This is his third funeral, but the first for me to attend. I realized that he arrived in America as he had dreamed and envisioned, but only in ashes, not in a physical form. So I think that gave me an inspiration to write. And then I complete the first book called Anchorless in 2017, and then I published it in 2019.
Right. And I noticed there's a chapter in this book called Anchorless. So Anchorless, that was another one of my questions, my next question, actually. So it covers some of the same ground, but is it more from your father's perspective only?
Yeah. So Anchorless is the story told from a voice of a dead person. It's only from my father's perspective. So I want to portray that as a regretful spirit remain on earth alongside with the living. The narrative of Anchorless is sorrowful, and I want to create sentences in the book of prose that are soft and make the readers feel like a whisper. The story has very little dialogue. Anchorless has very little dialogue. After all, a lonesome ghost who expresses sentiments to himself, contemplating that he's losing so much in life. He's grieving his own death and leaving so much unsaid and undone. So I think it's probably reflect my feeling, my true feeling at that point, that I was so emotional, and then it seemed like it's coming back. All the grief that clogged up inside me in that dark space, I started to realize it. So that's why I wrote Anchorless in that form. It's short. It's just simple. And I want to create a sorrowful ghost.
Mm-hmm. So am I right in thinking that Anchorless was kind of almost like the beginnings of this book are in Anchorless? Like it seems like...
Yes.
Except in this one, you seem to explore your own experience more.
Yes, because a few chapters of Anchorless are in the second book right now.
Oh, I see. Right.
But written in a more in a different narrative. But Anchorless to me is just like I described, right? I want to just create it as a soft voice that I feel like a whisper. I hope I put it in the right context. Right?
No, that's a very vivid image to me. Yeah, I can.
So because we're talking about a ghost, right? A ghost is telling his own story. But in Three Funerals for My Father's, it involved more history. It included my voice, and it answered a lot of questions. It gives the beginnings and the end of the whole thing about the Hoang family, and surrounding frame in the context of war. Frame in how he expressed his love for family, for how we feel about our father, his sacrifice, and it need to involve as the whole story, right? So with my story, my escape trip as well. Anchorless didn't mention my escape trip.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just that it's just focused on that smaller piece of it.
Yeah, on my father. Yes.
Right. And just to give context, you were talking earlier about the need to be practical in choosing your profession and your education. I mean, to be clear, when you and your 5 brothers and sisters came at the same time, when you first came to Canada, you were teenagers mostly, weren't you? And you were on your own. You were supporting yourselves.
Yes.
Because your family had been wealthy at first in Vietnam, because your father he sounds like a very industrious man. He had a thriving construction business, and then the war and the communist government, he basically had to spend all of his money just basically getting out of the country. That was the end of that. So you were supporting yourself. So I can certainly understand why you would need to choose something very practical that's going to get you a job. I mean, it's certainly a concern almost any young person would have, but I mean, especially if you're in a position where you're basically supporting yourselves as a teenager. So this sounds like, did you ever, this is a question I hadn't thought of. But in response to your answer, did you ever intend this to get to a wider audience? It sounds like you almost wrote it as a family history. It's interesting that to be passed down to future generations so they could kind of hear your father's voice, they could understand the whole family history for your daughters, and then maybe future generations. Were you writing with a wider audience in mind as well? Sorry to put you on the spot.
It's all right. Because there's just so much happening in the world right now. Whatever happened to me, I thought it was a thing of the past.
Yes.
Escaping Vietnam, planned secretly, and then across the ocean and all that, the refugee camps, and those years, for the Vietnamese people to escape Vietnam, it happened span over a decade, 10 years.
Right.
So it's a long history, a long period of human displacement. And then I thought it was already over because right now I'm already in Canada, but it really struck me when all of that still happened around the world. But perhaps in a different context, but it's still human displacement, still family loss, and affect generations and generations to come, right? So I wrote this with I do have a purpose in my mind that I would like people to read it and then start realizing that in tragedy, people will find the positive element in it. They will strive, like the stuff of survival, human survival is phenomenon that I had to use the word. And for the landed immigrant, for any refugee, if you see them behind the smile, behind the normal life and the normal work that they are doing, there's the stories, their struggle, and that need to be addressed and be aware of.
Right. Well, and it's like you were saying earlier. I mean, it's we often see these stories in news reports, and it doesn't have that human connection. Like you say, you're writing foremost from a very personal place. It really communicates that the immense tragedy of the situation and the what it feels like. So it gives a perspective to those events, I think.
Yeah, it's just like
contemporary events.
It's just I have to relive the experience that I went through. And then I had to reflect, and then feel that connection again. But then I feel the connection with those who actually experienced that what I had been through. So I think my story is only one of them. There's so many other out there that probably never got to be written. Yeah.
And I really liked how you drew attention to that, because you escaped on a boat that your father had built and taught he was your oldest brother
not my oldest.
Not your oldest?
My brother's only 1 year older than me.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yes,
And it was Phu.
Yes, Phu, yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
And so he learned how to pilot the boat, and it sounds like he steered you out of danger more than one time, because there were pirates.
Yes, exactly.
And you, at the refugee camp, you encountered other people who had been just destroyed, basically. They survived, but they were spiritually kind of destroyed by their experiences. And you managed to make it, your boat and everybody on board. So I really like how you drew attention to the fact that there were so many that didn't make it. And, that yours is just one story.
And not to mention many who die, and their story was never been heard.
They'll never be told.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's... So, speaking more to the writer's journey that you've been through, and this kind of recalling and reckoning with the whole history of yourself and your family. Do you have any advice for people who might like to explore their own personal or family stories in writing? Anything that you've found helpful? I mean, you've already kind of touched on it, right from a personal place. Don't just describe events, but kind of describe how it made you feel. But do you have any other kind of advice for people who might be writing their stories?
Yes. I think I can put in just one sentence. I can expand a little bit, but the first sentence I want to say is to put your pens where your pains are.
That's a good one.
So I don't mean that all family stories are painful, right? Some of them will be humorous and happy. However, the initial approach of the writing is essential. We need to ask ourselves why we wanted to write in the first place. We have to set a clear goal, and I think stay true to the purpose of the writing.
Right. That's great. I mean, 'cause it's a topic we've touched on it a little bit at the library. That we did a memoir writing workshop, I think, 3 years ago, and there was a lot of interest. So I'm hoping people will hear your story about your experience, kind of telling your family story in writing, and be inspired to maybe work on their own family stories. So thank you for sharing that. We've discussed a lot about kind of the supernatural elements of the book, the fact that a lot of it takes place from your father's perspective as a ghost, but there's a lot of elements of kind of Buddhist spirituality and the supernatural running throughout the book. So you mentioned like omens that appear. We see people, praying to like altars to your ancestors, happens quite a lot. The ritual you describe in detail about preparing food for the dead and leaving the food out. And then later in the book, you talk about communicating with your father through a medium, like a psychic medium, in the cemetery where he's buried in Vietnam. So I wanted to talk about this notion of spirituality. How does this differ, do you think, in Vietnamese culture from what we would understand in Western culture? Like when we say ghosts, does it mean the same thing in Vietnamese culture? Ghosts in the afterlife, or how is it similar?
Yeah. Okay. So I can tell you that the Western conception is more practical. But I grew up for Vietnam, like in Vietnam, like I have to go back and say I grew up under the strong influence of Buddhism. Some events happen that we cannot explain. Like if I mention omen in the books and mention all the events that happened, it was true because it happened. But then I cannot explain later. Like I cannot explain, such as out of the blue in the cemetery, the lady came up and it was true. She asked, and then she knew where my father's grave was at that point, right? And then when I met her, she was talking about a place that I live, and the event that happened that she lived in Vietnam, but I live here, but she knew. So some event that to me I think is unexplainable, and beside that. Under the influence of Buddhism, we believe in the afterlife. So, and in the practical point of view, so if you live this life fully, and then when you pass away, you die laughing. Right, but because you are in a peaceful country, you have all the opportunity to strive to, I have to ask the question of, do you experience so much hardship in life that you don't have time to enjoy the peace and then have time for yourself? So I think is the notion is created that whatever you cannot do in this life, okay, I comfort myself, I can do it in the next life. So I grew up with that. I think it's more like comfort, because you're living in the war-torn country. You're living in the environment that's uncontrollable factors are everywhere. So I see that I struggle in life now in this country. I struggle to build my life to get to where I am right now. But I couldn't imagine that my parents actually struggle through life to have 10 of us, to live through the war and go through so many stages of their lives. So I do feel that the medium about ghosts, the medium about the afterlife, I strongly believe in that because it creates a connection between us and the loved ones that pass away. And we can feel it. I can feel it. And to be honest with you, the event about the butterflies that you read in the book, I've heard it from my sisters at one point, and I asked my mother. She didn't answer clearly because she was upset, but then she told me everything in 2010 when I visited her at the hospital. So that's when it really struck me, and I wanted to build that in because it has to have like a closure. And people suffer so much. Like you lose your loved one. It's not that in when they are getting old due to illness or getting older, and the natural part of life is you die when you're getting old, and then you release from the suffering of this world. But in Vietnam, in a war-torn country, under the circumstances, you lose loved one out of like an accident, like a war, and unexplainable reason. You don't have the opportunity to live the whole life. So I think the notion of a ghost, the notion of the afterlife, viewed there for a reason, for a purpose. And I strongly believe in those.
Right. And I personally, I can't speak for the library. Personally, it's a subject that fascinates me. Like I think it's very, I've done a lot of reading on the subject, and that's part of what I found so compelling about your book too, is just that you put those parts in there, and it's, it's very powerful. This idea that your sister, your father they're still with you, right? I mean,
yes, I think that's one way of expressing, and also one way of creating a closure. Because for me, I want to create a closure to myself.
Like you said, yeah.
Yes.
And a closure to the narrative, but in your own life, you're saying as well.
Yes.
Right.
Like I have to end the grieving. I have to end it there.
Right.
Yep.
And I don't want to give away the ending of the book, but yes, it does. There is closure, as you're saying.
Thank you.
Well, and the last thing I want to ask you about, you are a professor of mathematics, as we said, and you've come to writing after this long career as a teacher of mathematics. And it kind of shows in the book because you use some very elegant math metaphors. You use particularly the one about, I'm probably going to say this wrong, Euler's identity?
Euler, yeah.
Euler.
Euler, yeah.
Euler's identity, where... So it's all of the factors. I mean, you can explain it better than I can, but for the layperson, who's has as much mathematical knowledge as I do, all of the factors of the equation resolve to zero, and you use that to kind of represent the efforts, as we were talking about, of all those who tried to escape at the same or around the same time you would have, but didn't make it. All their efforts came to zero. So can you talk a bit about how you came to make sense of your experiences and the world in general through math? I mean, you've kind of touched on this, and what made you want to bring the math into your writing?
I think it's 25 years teaching mathematics, and also create a career out of mathematics. I think it's embedded in me, and I try to explain everything with mathematics. My children told me that mom is occupational hazard. Yeah, you talk everything mathematics, so
Right.
Can you just stop? Yeah, they told me that once in a while. So,
Right.
and I kind of agree with them. Like if you work on like something for so long, you create an occupational hazard. So, mathematics is the foundation of life. So I want to say that because we see math in everything surrounding us. So in my life, and then something that I cannot explain, I couldn't find the answer, a real answer for that. So I thought maybe I could use math to explain. And the one thing about destiny, or predetermined destiny or fate. It's something that we cannot explain. It's something we cannot explain. So plus Euler identity is a fascinating concept. Okay, so what I want to mention here, and I didn't write in the book, was that when Euler make a speech about his identity, at the end of the speech, like he make a speech to prove the equation, right? So at the end of the speech, he actually say that, therefore God exists.
Wow. Are you serious?
Yes,
Wow.
actually, he said that.
Wow.
He said it in a circumstance that he needed to say it. But I don't want to
Right.
give away all the history of mathematics. So
Right.
a lot of mathematicians, a lot of people started saying that this equation prove there's existence of God. But Euler is a Christian himself. So he said that to convince someone to believe in God, and also to say that the fascination, like the Euler identity is fascinating. Like you put something together, you add them up, and why does it become zero, right? Then you raise a number to a power, then that means that number has to be equal to -1, and you add 1 and equal to 0. So in real life, that equation is actually very useful because you use it in AC circuits. Okay, you use it in AC circuit. So we have DC circuit, AC circuit, alternating current. It's all applied to physics and electrical electronics. So then I also want to say this. Okay, so when I first when I study math in university, sometimes it's so intense. I take a look at the equation and I try to prove it, and I want to step away from it. Like I feel like I want to drop the entire question. I don't want to try to prove it any longer. So I start looking at words. I try writing paragraphs or making a poem out of it so I remember. Because in university, you don't have a formula sheet. You don't have a calculator either when you walk into an exam room. That's it. You have to remember everything. You remember. So I remember I make a poem out of some equation so that I could remember. Okay. So and then I look up words. So I want to tell you interesting about the words. So Euler identity consider the number E, right? So number E equals to 2.71818. So there's a whole calculus behind the topics to get to that number. And E is the symbol of calculus. And what is calculus? Calculus is about change and dynamics. So calculus, when people heard the word, oh, calculus is hard. But I say calculus is about change and dynamics. And I is what? Imaginary number. You have to imagine a number. Like it's equal to square root of -1. So if you key in square root of -1 onto your calculators, it will give you a message that an error, unless you put your calculator in a complex mode. Because this number is imaginary. That means it's created by human, right? So this number, this I is the imaginary part of a complex number, and we use that complex number in every science, the physics of what we are in surrounding us. But do we actually realize that? Okay, and then I concentrate on the word imaginary, and I concentrate on the word change and dynamics. I also concentrate on the word complex. Okay, so if I put language into it, okay, and then pi is an irrational number, meaning a number cannot express as the ratio of 2 integers. But what does irrational mean in English? Right? Like irrational come with like you make an irrational decision. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, for sure. The language is interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then also the number E is called a transcendental function. E is a transcendental function. So the word transcendental also means that related to spiritual or non-physical realm. You see? So if you put all of that together, take away the mathematics, but think of all the word: imagination, complex, irrational, transcendental. So in a way that I try to relate it to courage, fate, and failure, because we have a zero, right? So I try to explain how come I, like, at the camp where I was sitting there looking out in the ocean, like I was about to leave for Canada. I looked back and thought of all the ones who died and who they put in the same effort as me. But then their story probably was never heard by someone. So how can we explain that? So I don't think we can explain that unless we put some sort of imagination, some irrational decisions, some complex issue into it. Okay, so to me, it's like escape Vietnam was the only choice for survival. Okay, freedom was an imaginative piece in the unknown future. Then bravery boosts the irrational decision to step into those dangerous situations, but all came to nothing. So I feel that it's very much related to this equation for sure.
Right. And it's, and it's not to I don't want to scare any potential readers who might not have much knowledge of math. I think maybe it's the math teacher in you, but you've communicated in the book in a very clear and concise way. It doesn't, like, I don't have a lot of math in my educational history.
I'm sorry,
and it came through perfectly well. I mean, in the book, it's very effective.
Again, maybe occupational hazard.
Sure, of course.
We can go on forever.
But it does strike me that it is a very interesting way, because you're saying it's kind of a universal language, right? They say of
yes.
math. Like
also,
it's underlying.
Talking about Euler is very interesting, because Euler became completely blind at the age of 64. But during the time that he suffered from blindness and suffered from his disabilities, Euler continued to produce an immense amount of outstanding mathematics related to various aspects of science. So in a way that I thought, in any difficult situation, circumstances, if we try our best and we put a positive component into it, and we will overcome it. So it's a lot having to do with the equation where he said, therefore God exists. And then also relate to his characters, how he lived his life devoted to mathematics. And at the same time, not letting his disability took away his passion.
Right. I love that. That's a very deep metaphor. Even thank you for kind of unpacking that for us.
Yes, and thank you for explaining, because Euler identity mentioned just a tiny bit in chapter 21.
It's not a huge part of it. There are a couple other ones, like there's the parallel lines. You use that as a metaphor as well, like the parallel lines that never meet except in infinity. I mean, you're right. I never thought about that way, like the relationship between language and mathematics and numbers. I mean, and mathematics and language.
Yes.
And how you use that to help make sense of these experiences. I think I think it works really well, and so that's why I just
thank you so much.
And that's pretty much all I have. I mean. I thank you so much for speaking with me today. This has been a great conversation. I mean, I've really enjoyed. I was really looking forward to meeting you after reading the book. Like I said, I almost feel like I kind of know you, but it's nice speaking with you and getting more kind of more background on the process for creating the book, on your experiences and your kind of your thoughts around it. Is there anything else you would like to say?
Yeah, I would like to say thank you for having me. I also would like to mention that I came to Canada under the sponsorship of the Hamilton Mountain Fund to help the boat people. At the time in the 1980s, Judy and John Smith create the charity, a private charity, and they devote their energy, their time, their finance into the process of sponsoring Vietnamese people from the camp to Canada. So I will 7 of us all together, brother and sister at that time, we were rejected by all the delegations. And Judy and John Smith actually privately sponsored us over. So I would like to take a moment to say thank you to both Judy and John. And also, I thank you for having me on the show. Thank you for having me allowing me talking about my books, about my experience. And I have to thank my parents for, they are everything, like everything. So I also, plus in the process of writing this book, I also want to thank you to my editors. The director of Tidewater Press, Lynn Duncan, and Kumani Jane Denny. They guide me through the process of writing this book, and they polish my writing. They discipline me to change the sentences, to put it in the context of a real memoir. Like I make the comparison before, like Anchorless was like a lonely voice of a ghost, a lonesome voice, and contemplating life, and just for himself, so less dialogue and all of that, leave it at that. But this book expand a lot more into the realities of the Hoang families and everything that we had to go through. So I have to I have to say thank you, and I am quite lucky to have met Lynn and Kilmany, because without them, I don't think this book will be out in the world today. So if Lynn and Kilmany, if you hear this, I would like to say thank you again, and I appreciate very much. Yeah.
Well, speaking of the book being out in the world, this is a great book. I would recommend anybody listening. We do have a copy at Niagara Falls Public Library. Where can people go and buy the book if they would like to purchase it?
Yes, so actually the book is available in major booksellers across Canada. You can find it in Chapter, in St. Catherine, like a St. Catherine Chapter bookstore has 10 copies available. You can order it online. You can order it through Tidewater Press website. You can order on Amazon. You can order from some local bookstore in your areas, and also you can order ebook.
Right. And where can people connect with you or keep up to date on your your activity as a writer?
Oh, yeah, I do have a website. The website is very simple. It's joliephuong.com.
Okay, Jolie Phuong.
Yeah.
We will be sure to link to that for anybody listening. We'll link to that in the description.
Yeah,
so.
and my website indicates news and events, like up to date. Also, a little bit behind the scene of writing the book, and also I put some images in my blog, so just to bring the book to life.
Right.
You don't see any. You don't see any image in the book actually.
Mm-hmm.
But if you visit my website and you click on the blog tabs, and just let the slide show run by itself, and then you can see images that I put there.
That'd be great. That would be wonderful to have that context. I mean, I love those parts of books where there's the middle, the middle glossy pages where they have, photographs that kind of just give context to the story. So I'd be interested to go check that out.
Yeah. So, but it is nice that all the photo is not in this book, because it's written in a different form, like you said.
I agree. It's better to experience it as kind of as a literary experience. But having been through it, it's almost like, you're just curious to see. I wonder what some of these people actually look like, because you've read all about them and all about their experiences. It's just
yes. And then there's image about the temple, right? So because they all is real, right? The story is real. Like so I put image there, like the temple, like the giant incense, the boat, the escape boat, the image of my father in front of the cathedral with the rooster on the top. Like there's a story about the rooster, and also what else did I put there? Like a sand dune of Mũi Né. Quite a few
Right.
pictures that you can relate to the book.
For sure. I'll have to go have a look at that. That's great.
Yes.
Well, Jolie, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. And again, I would recommend this book to anybody listening. I mean, I think it would make a great book club book. And I just recommend anybody go and find a copy and read it and be moved. Thank you so much, Jolie.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And that's it for the podcast. You can find author Jolie Phuong Hoang's book, 3 Funerals for My Father, at the Niagara Falls Public Library. You can also borrow her first book, Anchorless. And I've created a list of books about Vietnam, its history, and the American War in Vietnam. You can find that at nfpl.info/podcast EP3. That's nfpl.info/podcast EP3. You can also purchase 3 Funerals for My Father at local booksellers, and you can keep up with author Jolie Phuong Hoang at her website, joliehoang.com. That's JOLIEHOANG.com. For now, thanks for listening to the podcast, and we will see you next month.